Welcome to This Birding Life, a podcast for birdwatchers everywhere. I'm your host, Bill Thompson III. This Birding Life comes to you from the Big Birdhouse at Birdwatchers Digest. We want to congratulate this fine magazine on 40 years of publishing fantastic content for birders. Get a taste of what Birdwatchers Digest is all about at birdwatchersdigest.com. This Birding Life is sponsored by three fantastic and forward-thinking organizations: Carl Zeiss Sports Optics, makers of the amazing Victory SF binocular and the new and equally amazing Harpia spotting scope. Join the Zeiss community of birders at facebook.com/ZeissBirding. Quark Expeditions, the leader in polar adventures, has partnered with Noah Stricker for a brand new birding expedition sailing from South Georgia to Cape Verde. Noah will act as field guide and onboard lecturer as passengers explore some of the world's most remote islands in search of rare and endemic birds. Learn more at quarkexpeditions.com. Finally, the American Birding Expo is your opportunity to experience the world of birding in one place. It happens every fall, and it just happened this past fall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. More than 100 exhibitors from all over the world will be there. Our dates for 2018 are September 21 to 23 in Oaks, Pennsylvania at the Greater Philadelphia Expo Center. Learn more at birdingexpo.com. Now on to our episode. This is episode 73, More Birding Stories. I'm a lucky duck in many ways, but I especially appreciate the opportunities I get to travel the world for birding. These trips that are offered to me are oftentimes promotional in nature. That is, destinations will invite journalists, tour operators, travel professionals to come and sample their country or region and its birding opportunities in hopes of attracting more attention and thus more eco or avatourism business in the future. In addition to the amazing places and birds I get to experience, I also get to meet loads of fascinating people, many of whom become friends during our adventures. Recently, I was in Taiwan on one of these familiarization trips with 5 other birding professionals as my fellow travelers. As usually happens, we began trading stories during the long rides between birding spots and in the evening around the dinner table. Here are 4 of the stories I collected during this Taiwan trip. None of them, incidentally, about Taiwan specifically, which will be the subject of a future episode of This Birding Life. First up is Lilis Avaret, a native Ecuadorian and one of the first Latin American birding guides to guide in countries other than his own, which is Ecuador. Lilis works for the Partnership for International Birding and was involved in the remarkable discovery of a new species of ant pitter.
I'm Lilis Navarrete, and bird guide from Partnership for International Birding. But back in those days, I was working for a company called Neblina Forest in Ecuador, and so I was working together with John V. Moore, who was producing a set of CDs for the bird sounds of Ecuador. Mm-hmm. So he also invited Robert Ritchie, who was the author of Birds of Ecuador field guide. So
famous tropical bird expert.
Famous ornithologist, scientist who's reading several books like Birds of Panama, Birds of Ecuador, Birds of South America, and now he's working in several books of Brazil. So we were in the southern part of Ecuador, just basically hunting for sounds for John's publication. So we decided to go to this site at the time, I don't know, some 12, 14 years before that, talking about probably the early 80s. Ridgely had an expedition along there, but he never had a chance to stop in a given particular place to go survey. So he decided that it'll be a nice place to go and probably do some recording in there. Mm-hmm. So there we were, just 4 or 5 people walking along the trail, and we heard this distant voice, And funny enough, we paused, and we caught birds on the bird sound in Ecuador. So we look at each other and say, what are the birds singing over there? So, of course, nobody knew, and we just, had several theories about what the bird was. So, funny enough, carry on the trail, and 40 minutes after, or an hour after, this bird was singing right in front of us. So I pulled out the microphones, recorded the playback, and this bird was, just so aggressive, very territorial, showed up. And when you see a bird like that, is so unique, an anpeta, being so unusual looking, you certainly know that's a new species for science. It's not like studying those small flycatchers when they have been in museums, but they didn't know the voice or where they were from.
Right, no remarkable field marks
this
to
is
look at.
quite obvious,
Right.
big bird that you see for first time ever.
And what did it look like? Can you describe what it looks like?
Sure. It's it's the New World anpeta, and it's very long leg. It's got a dark black cap with a quite obvious half a moon mustache on the cheek, upside down, and sort of brownish back with grayish underpart. But it's quite unique. I mean, there's nothing with that pattern in the anpeta groups in the New World.
Right.
So right after we saw it, we knew it was a new species for science. And that's like winning the lottery in the birding world. So, but much more interestingly, after the discovery of that bird, what happened, the collecting for science, the description, made up to the news, it also turned a big event for the conservation in South America, because out of that finding, there was a foundation that started protecting the land for that anpeta, and later on it started working in different other sections of Ecuador to protect more wildlife, and especially threatened or vulnerable or endangered species of birds. And not only that, but later on, that same model that was used in Ecuador was also applied for Colombia, for Bolivia, for Paraguay, for Panama.
Wow.
So it made a big change on conservation also for
That one bird.
one single bird, one single event.
Now, what did you say to yourself when this bird popped up and you saw it?
You find yourself speechless. There's no way.
Yeah.
You cannot describe the
Right.
feeling of it.
And have you seen the bird since then?
Yeah, but by now, you probably heard about this. The anpeta whisper man. We convinced him to train one of the park rangers, so he could do that with the Hokotoco anpeta.
Okay.
And that now, by now times, you can go and see the bird with the earthworm feeding technique.
Right.
So the bird basically shows up every day.
And so, describe what first of all. So this was the Hokotoco
The Hokotoco anpeta,
anpeta
and then later on it became the Hokotoco
Foundation that's done all the good work around South America. Describe the feeding technique you're talking about.
Oh yeah, this it also changed. I don't only think that it's the birding in South America, but also worldwide, because after this person started using this technique, it was also applied worldwide, not only in South America. So the story goes about a man who it was a hunter and a farmer who was actually cutting down forests and hunting for wildlife. But as the time goes around and life goes around, he bought a piece of land, and he knew about some of the tourism and bird watching tourism that was going on around close to their farmland. So he decided if he asked some of the people involved in tourism if he'll build a trail with a blind to look for the Andean cock of the rock, if people will come and visit his place to look for this showy, gaudy bird in his property. So some of the guys said, yes, we'll do it. So he started finally enough. He started building this trail into the woods, down a hill, steep hill. So he was doing these steps. And how he was doing these steps, he realized that every day he was working on the trail down the hill, this bird will come out and start feeding behind him where he was working on the trail.
Where he dug up.
So he dug up some of the earthworms.
Yeah.
So, but he's a very clever, smart guy. So he picked up some of the earthworms and started throwing it into it. And so this process of the trail making lasted a few days or a couple of weeks. But at the end of the work on the trail, the bird was habituated to this guy feeding Ed. So funny enough, the first group of visitors came, and they were much more impressed, not only for the cock of the rock, but the fact that they had this giant ampeda,
Yeah.
bird that was hardly seen back those days, right there on the trail. And he went like, well, yeah, this bird is always with me when I've been working on the trail. And not only that, but he's my friend. Look, I just throw some earthworms to it and it'll come to me. And so it was the start of it. Then he later on learned that there were other species, and he used the same technique to train the bird to get a picture to people and get some of the earthworms from him. And that also went, spread out into other areas of Ecuador, Hocotoco and Pita being one of them. But that technique is also used in Colombia and Peru. And shortly after, it also went overseas into Asia.
Oh, wow.
Some other people have been.
Okay. Well, here comes our host here at the Firefly Lodge, who wants to show us an owl. What's the owl we're waiting to see?
Yeah, northern bubuk.
So, would you say that event with the Hocotoco ant pit changed your life?
Well, it changed my life and the life of many people in South America.
Yeah.
Certainly, yes, for sure. Yeah.
In what way has it changed your life personally?
Well, the boosting on birding tourism that occurred in Ecuador, and I was part of it.
Yeah.
And not only that, I was part of board member of the Hocotoco Foundation for 10 years, working in conservation in my country. And, all the network you develop with people in science and conservation and wildlife overall.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. Well, thanks for telling that story to us. I hope I get to see that species someday, and maybe you can take me there.
Yeah, sure. You got to come to southern Ecuador.
I've never been to Ecuador, so it'd be a real treat.
It will be my pleasure. Yeah, for sure.
Liz, thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks to you.
Jerry Connolly is the owner of the Audubon Shop in Madison, Connecticut. Over the years of selling birdseed, feeders, and optics to his customers, he's developed a series of international birding trips to places like Panama, Southern Africa, and even Madagascar. Here, Jerry shares a story about using his charm strategically at the airport.
Hi, I'm Jerry Connolly from the Audubon Shop in Madison, Connecticut. We do a lot of international traveling. I bring clients all over the world, Asia, Africa, Central and South America. So I've been doing a lot of flying, and when I fly, which is always coach, I try to get the exit row. The exit row gives you a little bit of extra room for your legs. You're not as cramped, gives you more workspace. I always have things to do. A big long trip really never bothers me, but it is always better in an exit row. So in order to get an exit row, it's changing now because now they're actually charging for it. But there are still airlines out there where you actually have to schmooze your way into the exit row. And I was going to share with you one method I had, or in one instance that I had of getting an exit row from Johannesburg to New York City. Well, that's a 15-hour one-way trip, nonstop. So having a little extra leg room is a real luxury. So I'm in line on a particular, it was a couple of years ago, in Joburg, and a nice South African lady is behind the counter. And I asked her, I said to her, boy, did I enjoy my time in Southern Africa. In this case, it was Namibia and Botswana. And I come here almost every year. Is there any possible way? Do you have any exit row seats available? And she said, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Connolly, I don't have anything for you. Okay, no problem, And at that point, one of her coworkers came and gave her a plastic cup full of Coca-Cola with a lid on it, to which she said to the coworker, oh, thanks, but there's no straw. I can't drink this. There's no straw. I just put on my lipstick. And she produced a little tiny tube of lipstick. I don't know, maybe like ounces or anything like that, but it was maybe an inch long, like the size of a bullet. And I'm like, how long does that last you? Like 2 or 3 applications? Oh, no, this lasts a long time. I paid 50 Rand for that. That's like, not a lot. At 14 Rand per dollar. So I said to her, well, thank you very much. She gave me my boarding pass, and I said, but let me just leave you with this. She had this very pretty, almost kind of maroon, not red, but kind of, you could say Rufus lipstick. And I said to her, ma'am, if I were you, I would never use anything but that lipstick because that is very becoming on you. And I said goodbye, and I turned around and walked away, and she said, oh, Mr. Connolly, I found something for you. And I turned around, kind of surprised, and she said, oh, I've got an exit row. I found an exit row seat for you. And she sat me with, on the, those of you who know international airlines, there's usually a couple of exit rows, and the one in the back, you can put your the seat back. And it was 2-4-2 configuration. I get the aisle seat on a 2. I guess the moral of the story, and I find this in all trips that I take, that when you're dealing with people like at airports or at hotels or lodges, guides, all these people that you run into, when you treat them well and you are polite, they treat you well because they're humans. And you think about this, when you go, next time you go into the airport, the amount of kind of unpleasant people that the people behind the desk have to see on a daily basis is quite large. So when someone is friendly, complimentary, and brings a little smile to their face, it not only makes them happy, but it can make you happy too. Thanks, man.
Good one. When John Yerger of Borderland Tours took a long hike into a remote southeastern Arizona canyon, he didn't know that his EMT training would come in handy, but it did. Here's his account of a harrowing hike to see the five-striped sparrow and the ensuing wilderness rescue of him and 2 friends.
Yeah, so I'm John Yerger, currently Assistant Director of Borderland Tours. But back home in Portal, Arizona, I'm also a firefighter and wildland firefighter and EMT. So that gives a bit of interest to my life. But long before any of that, even, I had some basic wilderness first responder training, and it came in handy while birding once. So, I don't know, where do I even start? So, I was living in Tucson at the time, and a good buddy of mine and I had been living there for a little bit, and another friend of ours came to visit. And as we typically do, we like to go to some pretty remote areas when it's just us, just a couple of us birding. And not the kind of places I normally go on tour now, but places we just go to, have fun, hike and bird. So, Sycamore Canyon, a pretty famous spot in southeast Arizona.
Right, five-striped sparrow.
Yeah, exactly, and all kinds of varied bunting and lots of good, border specialty stuff. We decided to go there. So we'd been there, my buddy and I had been there a bunch of times. We knew the whole thing inside and out, every twist, every rock wall. So it was kind of like our favorite spot to go. So we took our visiting friend down and hiked in. So it's about, to get down to the actual Mexican border, which is as far as you really should go, obviously, is like 6.5 miles one way. So it's about 13 miles round trip. It's a long way, and it's through this tortuous, anyone who's been there knows it's like this torturous kind of a canyon if you try and, go too hard. So we decided to hike in, camp overnight, and then we'd be in a good spot in the morning, get up and go get the five-striped sparrow and, see what else is down there. So we did that, hiked in, no big deal, about 4 or 5 miles in, I forget, somewhere down there. And, had a little campfire, dinner, whatever, So we wake up the next morning, and our visiting friend is like, oh, I feel kind of sick. I don't know, I think I'm going to just stay here and camp for a little while. You guys go birding. We're like, well, dude, we're going to go get the five-striped sparrow. Like, it's 1.5 miles further down. We're not going to go there, come back, get you, and then go down again and come back, So this is it. Are you sure you feel that bad? He's like, yeah, don't worry about it, guys. Whatever, just go get it. Like, all right, that's kind of weird. So we went, and found five-striped sparrow singing on top of an ocotillo, very good looks. Mm-hmm. Spent a lot of time with the bird. Saw berry bunting, a couple elegant trogons, things that like birders drool over.
Yeah.
And we'd hiked and camped overnight, so it felt, especially satisfying. But so we get back to the camp spot, and our friend's still laying there, all wrapped up in his sleeping bag. Like, oh, that's not good, So we try and get him up and moving, We're like, well, look, we got to hike out, and especially if you're not feeling well, let's go home and, we'll just call it quits right now. Yeah, all right. So he tries to get up, and he's just so sick that he can't walk. I'm like, oh, great. We're 4 miles into this remote canyon with a guy who can't hike out. Like, he seems fine, he didn't break anything, it's not like your typical sort of,
right.
oh crap moment where you've got to go,
right.
get somebody to carry him out. But we're like, well, look, we'll take it real easy. We'll carry your pack. We all had pretty big packs for all the camping gear. And like, all you got to do is walk out. No sweat. So, all right, I'll give it a try. We get about 1/4 mile. He's a stop. He's vomiting. Can't keep water down. Like, man, what is going on? We try and review, what we ate and everything. Mm-hmm. He ate one thing that none of the rest of us ate. Like, well, geez, maybe you have food poisoning, We'll just get out, and, we'll get you feeling better. Well, long story shorter, he just, like, he couldn't pull it together. I'm like, shoot, well, now what? We tried to, my buddy was like, look, I'll just throw you on my back, and we'll just try and just go for it. And, like, he, that was obviously not going to happen. So we had to come up with a plan. So at this point, we just realized we need help. We're like, maybe we can just get some folks to help us carry him out. And I had done a little bit of search and rescue stuff, but, I wasn't really experienced like I am now. Mm-hmm. And so I said, okay. Say to my buddy, like, you stay here with him, with our friend who's visiting. And we've got lots of water. You got food just in case it takes me longer than I think, and all that. And got set up in a nice sheltered spot, and I took off up the canyon. Got to the car, drove down the road thinking I'll just try and get to cell phone service and call for help. I come across this border patrol station. Like, oh, that's weird. Like, just this remote outpost where they've just sort of set up for, a couple weeks or something to do some remote operations of some kind. And I explained the situation, and the guys immediately jumped in. There's like 6 or 7 Border Patrol agents. And like, they're just sitting there bored out of their minds,
right.
Waiting for nothing to happen. And this is on Memorial Day, by the way, so it's like a weekend, like holiday weekend thing, but they've seen nothing going on. So they're all getting geared up, and, they've got one of their EMTs with them. It's like, great, all right, let's go do this. Turns out only one of the Border Patrol agents had ever been down that canyon before. So we knew the area way better than some of these guys did, just because we've been down there so much birding. So I take a look, I'm talking to the guy and telling him all about, like, you have to be prepared. Like, this is a pretty gnarly hike in. And I was like, oh, yeah, no problem. So we get down there, just hiking into the place. Like, one of the guys, like, almost twists his ankle, I'm like, oh, man, this is not... We haven't even gotten down there yet. Like, this is not going to go well. So we all get down there. the EMT starts doing his assessment. My buddy's relieved to see me with like 7 border patrol. I brought the frickin' cavalry, you know. So, you know, they sort of figure out that there's no way we're carrying anybody back up that narrow slot canyon that we just came down.
Right.
So they call for a helicopter. I'm like, oh, this is getting crazy. Like, I thought, you know, we'll just get these guys down, get an EMT, we can give them some fluids, or do, you know, somehow get them up and going. No, they're like, we're not doing any of that. We're just going to call a helicopter. We're going to airlift them out. I'm like, oh, you got to be joking. So, but now, of course, it's getting dark. Like, this whole thing took all day to, like, for me to hike out 4 miles, hike back in 4 miles with the guys. I mean, you know, this is an epic sort of, you know, operation. So it's getting dark, and they call in one of the life flight helicopters from Nogales or something. And the life flight helicopter circles around. They can't find a landing spot, and they just head out.
Nice.
So no helicopter now.
Right.
Like, now what? But, you know, now this is the Border Patrol show. Like, they've taken over. Like, we're just sort of hanging out, waiting for them to figure out what's going on. You know, like, oh, man, see, we should have gotten the Black Hawk in here in the first place. Like, come on, just get those guys in here. Like, what? So they call it BORSTAR. Border Patrol Search, Trauma, and Rescue. These guys are like the Army Rangers, you know, like Navy SEALs of, like, the Border Patrol. So this huge Black Hawk helicopter finally comes, you know, thundering in, and it's dark. I mean, it is pitch black now, and they've got these huge spotlights, and the rotor wash is blowing up with dust and everything. They can't land because their helicopter is way too big to get into the slot canyon. They're going to lose lift and all that. So they drop some supplies down the rope and say, okay, get this guy on the backboard, get him all packaged up. We're going to go find a landing spot. So they go find a landing spot. They actually find a landing spot that they feel good about. And it's about a half a mile up a side canyon. So that's just how it is. That's where, you know, we're going. So by now, you know, I mean, you know, our visiting friend is obviously not doing well, you know. He's just about as close to passed out as you can get. So strap them all into the board, and we got all these guys. And, you know, if you have ever done any search and rescue stuff, 7 guys to 9 guys doesn't cut it. You need like 20 or 25 people, because even over a half mile, it's just nasty footing, and, you know, the backboard gets heavy. Even, you know, this is a scrawny dude like me. I mean, he was only 120 pounds or something like that. So it wasn't like that heavy, but it's still pretty rough going. So and it's in at night, you know. So whenever we start going, I scout out the trail ahead of them, because there's no trail per se. I mean, there's loose rocks and veg and all that. So, you know, I'm saying, like, okay, you know, like, we got to go around this tree and this bush. I mean, you know, just really like bushwhacking, but with a backboard and a bunch of guys carrying it and trying to, like, fit through the shrubs and around trees and up this crazy little, you know, stream bed. Anyway, so this whole time, the birding part of this is that here we are, we're making a ton of noise and trying to get, you know, our friend out, and crashing and breaking branches. And there are owls calling up and down, more owls than I've ever heard. I mean, like, every, like, 10 steps, there's a new whiskered screech owl or an elf owl. I think we even had one pygmy owl. So, like, you know, if this guy was keeping an evacuation list, I mean, there's some pretty good birds. You know, some Southeast Arizona specialties on his evacuation list. But anyway, so we finally get up there and load him into the helicopter. Like, whew, all right, we're good. Like, we'll hike out with you guys. And they're like, no, we're not taking any more chances on this. You guys get in. What? So my buddy and I jump into the helicopter, perfectly healthy, like, you know, no need. But they insist. They say, no, we're taking you out too, just to, so we don't, you know, we'll camp here overnight, or we'll wait for the helicopter to come back and get us too. They don't want to hike back out. That's 5 miles at night, you know.
Right.
So we rode in a Black Hawk helicopter to Tucson, to the hospital with our friend. That was That was our epic
Oh my gosh.
evacuation from, remote bird watching.
And what was it that was
near disaster?
ailing your friend?
They just figured it was some kind of food poisoning. He was just
And he's
too
fine now?
weak to. Yeah, he made it through. He was just fine in the end.
Oh my god.
But all that just food poisoning, it just goes to show you, if you have to go into those situations prepared, but as prepared as you can be, sometimes you're just out there,
Right.
and that's just how it is. So be very careful
Be careful out there.
out there.
Great one, John. Our final story comes from Dushan Broekhuizen of Rock Jumper Birding Tours. Dushan is a native of the Netherlands who moved to Ecuador to become a full-time birding guide. His drive to see new bird species has landed him in some rather dicey and tight spots from time to time. Here's a tale about chasing an oropendola in Medellin, Colombia.
So I'm Dushan Brinkhuizen, and I'm originally from the Netherlands, born in Groningen, but for the last 11, 12 years I've been living in Ecuador, in the capital Quito, where I've been working as a professional bird guide and tour leader. And for the last few years I've been a full-time tour leader for Rock Jumper Birding Tours. And we do birding tours all over the world, worldwide birding adventures with Rock Jumper. My specialization, my area of expertise is, of course, Ecuador and South America and Central America, Caribbean. This is a bit of a different birding story, of course. I've been many times in Colombia. I've done several tours there, and I love Colombia. And I've actually, many people are still wondering, is Colombia safe or not? And I can tell you, Colombia is actually very safe. But I did something afterwards which I think was stupid. I took a risk, and luckily, in the end, nothing bad happened. But the story is about that. So, I had this tropical disease, and the best way to cure it, and the cheapest way for me to cure it, was get a treatment in Colombia, which surprisingly was completely for free. And even as a foreigner over the phone, they said, you can come to our clinic, we'll help you. And that's what I did. And it was fantastic. So this disease causes a lesion, and the lesion gets bigger and bigger if you don't treat it. And mine was a couple of centimeters wide. So I had been walking around with this lesion for a couple of months, unfortunately. But so I went to Colombia and took the treatment, but I had to get back for a second time to Medellin for a checkup to see if everything was going well. And as you know me, I'm a fanatic birder.
Yes, you are.
And had been already like 8 or 9 times to Colombia. My hit list, my target list was very small. And around Medellin there was not much that I could get, except for Baudo oropendola. And a friend of mine, Trevor, he told me he knows a site, and it's around a 6-hour bus drive down from Medellin into the Chocó lowlands, into the lower foothills, a town called Debaiba. And he said, there's a good spot there for Baudo oropendola. And he gave me the location and the details, and I asked him, is it safe? And he said, it is safe. When I was there, it was safe, but there is the Paramillo National Park, and the guerillas inside the park, so the whole area is kind of a red zone. But if you take care, no problem.
Right.
So I took the bus, and with this info, and I arrived in Debaiba, and the first thing I did is I checked in a hotel. I asked them, is it safe over here? They said it's perfectly safe over here. Then I went to the police station, and I went to the militaries. They all said it's all safe here. Guerilla is far away. And then suddenly I got a phone call, or actually I called another friend of mine, Diego, also Colombian, and he told me, "Are you in the Beba? Are you completely out of your mind? They just blew up a couple of buses. Nobody was killed, but the guerrilla came down to the highway, and so that area is hot right now, as they say, caliente. Don't go there. Come back." And then I said to Diego, like, "Listen, would you agree with me? If it's caliente right now, there's military all over the place. It's actually safer than it was a week ago." And he said, "Well, you got a point, but I would go back." So anyway, I'm being stubborn, and I go to the spot. I had a local young taxi driver. He drove me around, not in a taxi, but in a moto taxi, which is on a motor. And I felt safe with this guy. He was young, maybe 17, 18. He said he knew the guerrilla. He knew everybody here. I was safe with him. So he drove me around, and that was a good feeling. So I went to this place where Trevor had told me there's a little colony with nests of this Oropendula. And I got there, and I had to hike up maybe 100 meters up on a steep trail to get to a house of a finca, as they call, a farm. And I did that. In the afternoon, I met the owners of the finca. They were super friendly, Colombians. And they said, "Yeah, we remember your friend. He was here. And look, here's the nests." So I saw the nests, but no Oropendula. And, well, I thought, never mind. Tomorrow morning, I'll be back. And they actually said, "Oh, yeah, it's perfectly safe. The guerrilla is on the other side of the river, far in the forest. So don't worry. Just everything is fine." So I really felt safe. Next morning, I went back early morning, same taxi, moto taxi guy. He dropped me off, and I started walking up the steep trail to get to the house. And as I get to the edge at the ridge, at the end of the trail, right in front of the house, I get up. And that's where I got very scared. It was like instantly. There were like maybe 8, 10 men with guns in military clothing standing, surrounding me. And one of them actually suddenly pointed his gun at me, and he said, "What the are you doing here, gringo? You're out of your mind." And it's seconds, and I realized they've all got good guns, they all got military boots, and suddenly the sergeant steps up front, and he says, "Don't worry, we're national military. You're safe with us. Mm-hmm. We're not guerrilla." So I checked, and suddenly I realized, okay, I'm so lucky, because this could have been guerrilla, but in fact it was the National Army. And I said, "It's not safe here." They said, "It's absolutely not safe. The guerrilla is all around us. What are you doing here?" And well, I actually, as I'm always honest, and in those kind of situations you just try to be completely honest, I said, because I was still shaking kind of all these military. I said, I'm looking for a Oropendula. And the sergeant says, "Oh, Oropendula, the black bird with the yellow tail. Oh, we know them. They're all over the place." So he suddenly whistles. And like in a Rambo movie, from all places I see foliage moving, literally like 50 militaries with paintings on their faces, some with heavy machine guns. They all came out of the forest, just like in a movie, and they all surrounded me. And the sergeant said, "This gringo loco, this crazy foreigner, he's looking for a Oropendula. So everybody spread out. If you find Oropendula, show it to him, and after that, he goes immediately back to Medellin." So, believe it or not, I got this huge artillery, let's say, helping me look for the Bauda Oropendula, and actually within no time, they found it. And I ran, and they showed it to me. I took photos, and It was, one of my craziest birding experiences. And it's a good one, but it does show that on the same hand, it could have been guerrilla and they could have captured me, and it could have been a complete different story.
Right.
But I got to Orpendola, so that's important.
Special thanks to our storytellers, Lelis, Jerry, John, and Dushan. They were all good sports to tell us their stories. Special thanks, too, to our host and our sponsors. Happy 40th anniversary to Birdwatchers Digest, the magazine for birders who love to read and readers who love to bird. Learn more at birdwatchersdigest-digital.com. Carl Zeiss Sports Optics is a This Birding Life sponsor. They also make top-flight optics for birding. Join the Zeiss community of birders at facebook.com/ZeissBirding. Carl Zeiss, we make it visible. Quark Expeditions is the leader in polar adventures, offering unparalleled access to the most remote parts of the globe. Learn more at quarkexpeditions.com. And finally, the American Birding Expo, which is the world of birding in one place. Join us every fall to experience the birding lifestyle. Learn more about the Birding Expo and next year's dates at birdingexpo.com. That's it for this episode, folks. Subscribe to the RSS feed if you haven't already, so you won't miss a single monthly episode. And please send us your comments to editor@birdwatchersdigest.com. That's me. Until next time, thanks for listening. This is Bill Thompson III saying, I'll see you out there with the birds. Laters!